April 21st, 2020, Oshkosh Common Council. Please call the roll.
Mugrower,
Here.
Krause,
Here.
Peschel,
Here.
Miller,
Here.
Allison Osby. Here. Herman,
Here.
Palmieri,
Here.
present 7.
We'll now say the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So the first and only item that we have on the consent agenda today is for the Oshkosh Board of Canvass filing of the official statement of votes cast for the April 7th, 2020 election for Oshkosh Common Council, declaring Lindsay Erickson, Michael Ford, and Matt Mugrower as elected. Clerk, do we have any comments that came in for this item?
I apologize, I didn't bring my laptop up, but I don't recall.
They go to Diane. We didn't get-
Diane? No, we did not receive anything.
Okay. So back to council for motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, please call the roll.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Krause,
Aye.
Peschel,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Allison Osby. Aye. Herman,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
carried 7.
Right, next we have just a couple of other business items. First off, we have a plaque presentation by Councilmember Mugrower to Councilmember Miller.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a few brief remarks first. Councilmember Miller, your passion for the city began long before you arrived on council a year ago, and I'm confident it'll continue long after. And I have no doubt you'll continue to have a positive impact on this community. Thank you for your willingness to step in a year ago, hit the ground running, and have an immediate and positive impact on this council and this community. You held the office with honor and distinction. The city of Oshkosh is better off with you having served it. Personally, it's been a pleasure to get to know you and to work with you, and you will be missed. Councilmember Miller, thank you for your service.
Thanks, Matt, and thank you to all you. Mayor, thank you. Everybody, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
It's been an honor.
And next, Councilmember Allison Osby has a presentation for Deputy Mayor Herman.
Thank you, Mayor Palmieri, and mine will be a little bit longer because it was a long 10 years. Of course, of course. Again, thank you, Mayor, for allowing me to say a few words. You all may or may not know this, but shortly after I was elected to council 9 years ago, I decided to shorten some names to something that required only one syllable. Herman went to Herms immediately, and thanks to Jackie Chalice, former admin assistant, the name stuck. Sorry, not sorry, Steve. In all seriousness, I wanted to take this opportunity to thank you. You have served the community for a decade of time, and that was already after serving your community for 30 years as county deputy. I have appreciated your independent approach to serving the community. You simply wanted to make Oshkosh a place where people wanted to live, to go to school, to work, retire, and raise a family. I never once seen you have an agenda other than to simply serve the people. Notable things you have spearheaded over the years included the encouragement and support for council members to take department tours upon assuming office, the city manager review handbook, and immediate support of the debt management policy that I and Mr. Peck wanted to bring forward. There have been miles and miles of water, sewer, and road repairs, the acquiring of a dilapidated Buckstaff property, improvements to the Sawdust District, a relocation of Oshkosh Corp headquarters, design standards, creation of GoEDC, and so much more. You've had an unwavering commitment to the city boards and commissions you have served on. I asked others what sticks out most in their mind during the 10 years that you have served, and here are some of the comments. He was committed to special events in the city and promoting the city as a great place to visit. He volunteered a lot of time helping at events and attending them. He provided real passion as the council rep to the Oshkosh Convention and Visitors Bureau Board. Another comment, he always supported public safety needs of the city. Another, he was and remains a consistent supporter of the community's quality of assets. He never wavered in his belief that these things are important to the community and that each generation has an obligation to care for and improve them and then pass them on to the next generation. Another commented he supported the initiative for tobacco-free parks and allowing dogs on leash on parks and on trails. And one of the most notable comments and attributes mentioned that is no matter if we agreed or disagreed, we always felt supported. That came from many folks on city staff. I and others have greatly appreciated your support and mentorship, and I've seen you reach out to be a friend to your colleagues on city council who have had health issues or maybe have lost a family member, even if you didn't see eye to eye on issues. That is what you call character and what being a leader is about. I seen this quote yesterday and I thought it would be a great one to end on. Leadership is not a position or a title. It is an action and an example. You have served well, Herms. And since you won't be using your city name tag any longer, we did have a special new one made for you. And also a plaque of appreciation.
Well, thank you, I appreciate it. Yeah, she took a lot of my thunder away. Which I was gonna make a few comments on a few things. First, I do want to thank department staff, especially department heads. It's not an easy job. You know, Deb mentioned the evaluating the city manager. We didn't have that. When I first got on council and we met, we went into closed session and it was like, okay, what do we do now? There was no direction. There was nothing. I remember one time we were discussing Mr. Roloff's salary. The mayor didn't agree with what we were talking about and he walked out of the meeting. I thought, a mayor walks out of a closed session meeting discussing the salary for our only boss? Because that's one thing I didn't know until I got on council. We only have control over one person, and that's the city manager. So that was something new. And then touring departments, that was former Mayor Cummings and I were one of the first council members to do that. And I thought that was the most important thing we did in my first term, was to tour all of the city departments so that when the budget session came around, I knew what the water department did. I knew what sanitation did. I knew what public works did. So any new council members, future council members, touring departments when you can, under today's situation, I strongly recommend it. Take the time off of work, because this is a big commitment. This is not 2 meetings a month. This is not once in a while workshop here and there. You need to be dedicated to your citizens and to citizens that you represent. And that's the neat thing about this form of government. You represent all of the citizens of Oshkosh, not the north side, not the east side, not the west side, not the south side, because we're not all dramatic. We're elected at large, we represent everybody. And so your mind has to be open to that. You cannot be narrow-minded, you can't be closed-minded, because you represent 66,000 plus citizens. And we're unique. We're one of the few communities that has a 4-year university, a 2-year associate university right in our backyard. And for years and years, especially my law enforcement days, the university was a black eye to the city of Oshkosh. There were a lot of people in Oshkosh who had a very negative impact towards the university and wish it would go away. Now today, they're one of our strongest partners with the city of Oshkosh. So partnerships, that's the one thing I came on board with, I campaigned on, was, you know, stay true to yourself, you know, come on, fresh ideas, end wasteful spending, and embrace public-private partnerships. I think it's critical. And Deb mentioned a couple things I just want to highlight. You know, when I got on council, there was no Riverwalk. It was a 30-year dusted study sitting on a shelf. The hotel was in disrepair. We didn't have a transload railroad link in the city, and we're one of the few cities to have that public-private partnership. The Menominee Nation Arena whether good, bad, or indifferent, hopefully it will end up being successful, is still going to be an anchor in the Sawdust District. It took 20 years to build a public works building. I hope it doesn't take that long to build a new police department and a fire station that we need on the west side of Oshkosh. And a new parks building. Our parks building's an old workshop for Fox Valley Tech. So I guess the comments I'm making is you can think about now, but you really need to think about 10, 15 years down the line. What do you want this city to look like? This council, previous councils that I've served on, looked at the future. We made corrections of some of the previous councils that made mistakes. We didn't, in the spending that Councilmember Allison Osby mentioned, we didn't look at refinancing loans and things. We just said, well, it's a 30-year loan, we just take care of it. Now we look at it, and we try to reduce the money that we paid for borrowing money, and we're gonna be borrowing a lot of money in the next few years to take care of our infrastructure, so. But it's been fun, and some people have asked why I chose not to run again after 10 years. Was it a health reason, was it what? It was just a personal decision. I never came into this being a politician. I never thought I'd be on 10 years. It's time to go. So I encourage you all to think about why you're on council. What are you going to do on council? What are you going to do to impact the citizens of Oshkosh and make Oshkosh that place that's a great place to live, work, and play? And 40 years in the public sector, public life, it's time to go. Thank you very much.
And I'd just like to also say thank you to Deputy Mayor Herman and to Councilmember Miller for your service. You have strengths that have been shown over time, and it's appreciated as we welcome new council members and their service, and your wisdom and comments by fellow council members is appreciated. So we'll now we'll take a motion and a second for adjourning sine die.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
No,
Aye.
it's-
Aye.
no, sorry, it's a roll
We do have a
call.
voice vote on
Yes.
sine die. Excuse me. Please call the roll.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Krause,
Aye.
Peschel,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Allison Osby. Aye. Herman,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
carried 7. We are adjourned.
and will faithfully discharge the duties of Oshkosh County Council to the best of your ability.
I do.
Okay. And I have a oath, if you would sign that and then get that back to me, and then your certificate is in the blue folder.
We'll now call to order the April 21st, 2020 organizational meeting. Can we please call the roll?
Allison Osby,
Here.
Erickson,
Here.
Ford,
Here.
Krause,
Here.
Mugrower,
Here.
Peschel,
Here.
Palmieri,
Here.
present 7. And then for the record, in between the meetings that I did swear in all 3 council members, Councilmember Ford, Councilmember Erickson, and Councilmember Mugrower.
Thank you. Welcome. So the first order of business will be our election of deputy mayor. I'll call for nominations 3 times before we close nominations. We do not require a second on those. And let's see here. Should we just go down the roll? Councilmember Allison Osby.
Are we allowed to only nominate 1, or can we nominate 2? What
Well,
do
we're
you
going to
mean?
make 3 calls for nominations. So we would have each nomination, and then we'll do a second call for nominations. It's my understanding, perhaps Attorney Lawrenson, you'd like to comment on that?
I only ask because there's 2 names that I
Sure.
would be happy to.
So you could call the second one at the second call.
My recollection is last year that there was one of the council members who made 2 nominations, and that was permitted. And I don't believe we've changed the rules at all in regard to that.
Correct. Okay.
Any other procedural questions? All right. Clerk, would you please go down the roll so that our council members can submit nominations?
Allison Osby,
I would like to nominate Matt Mugrower and Jake Krause.
Councilmember Councilmember Erickson,
If they're already nominated, do I?
Don't need to.
Nope, okay,
Just if there's a new name.
okay, sure.
Councilmember Ford,
I'm good.
Councilmember Krause,
No other names.
Councilmember Mugrower.
Nope.
Councilmember Peschel,
You'll have to forgive me, there was a break again, so what names have been
We
called
have,
already?
we have 2 nominations. One is for Councilmember Krause and one is for Councilmember Mugrower.
All right, no new names.
Mayor Palmieri.
I have no additional names.
Okay.
All right, and then our second call for nominations, although we've already had 2, a little cumbersome here. Would you like to call the roll to see if there are any additional?
Allison Osby. Any new names? Erickson,
Nope.
Ford,
No new names.
Krause,
No new names.
Mugrower,
Nope.
Peschel,
No.
Palmieri.
No additional. And the third and final call for nominations.
Allison Osby,
No?
Erickson,
Nope.
Ford,
No new names.
Krause,
No.
Mugrower,
Nope.
Peschel,
No.
Palmieri.
No. All right, we'll take a motion to close nominations.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Allison Osby. We're closing nominations. Aye.
Aye.
Erickson,
Hi.
Ford,
Aye.
Krause,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Peschel,
Aye.
Palmieri.
Aye.
Carried 7.
All right, discussion on the nominations, and this would include council members who may want to have comments on those nominated as well as the individuals who were nominated. Any discussion on the nominees?
I just personally think that, I think, for myself, I've done it 2 times. It's very educational, I think, to have, a new generation be the deputy mayor. The sole responsibility really of the deputy mayor, of course, is obviously if the mayor cannot run the meeting, and second of all, and really importantly, is the city manager evaluation, which takes care and detail in order to do. So I proposed two that are senior after myself and Ms. Palmieri. I think both would do a good job. I nominated Matt first just due to his initiatives that he did, has brought forth to council, whether they have been a favoring vote or not, but certainly appreciate his participation in trying to move our government forward. And of course, I've served with Jake now for Mr. Krause for 3 years. 3 years.
Would either of the nominees like to make any statements?
Sure.
Councilmember Krause.
Thank you for nominating me, Ms. Asby. Over the last 3 years, I've been proud to serve on council, and one of my goals when I first got on was to gain the respect and the trust of other council members to be considered for deputy mayor. I think that's a sign that you've done a good job. Coming on, I wanted to get reelected at least one time to earn the trust and satisfaction of the people that supported me the first time. I tried to be involved in the community. I've attended multiple charity events, serving as a worker there, helper, a speaker. I feel like I've contributed to a couple of the initiatives that we've passed, the smoke-free parks, the expanding early Saturday voting for the 2018 election. We came more in line with cannabis reform with other large cities in Wisconsin, and I've been a large supporter for the busing for kids. I feel like some of those are the items that I've been most proud of, and I would be honored and very excited to serve as deputy mayor. Thank you.
Councilmember Mugrauer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Appreciate Councilmember Allison Osby's nomination for the role. The first 2 years on council have definitely been educational and enjoyable as well. I've thoroughly enjoyed my service to this community. I'm thankful for the opportunity to continue to get to serve, and the deputy mayor role definitely is one of importance, and I'd be honored to have the role and to grow into that as well. If I can do it half as well, or even maybe a quarter well as Deputy Mayor Steve Herman did it, it'd be a good day. So with that, I appreciate the nomination, and that's my statement. Thank you.
All right. Any further discussion? All right, so when we call the roll, you will indicate your preference. If we only have, we have two, so we will have to go down the roll and have each one indicate your preference. And thank you for the nominations, and thank you for the willingness to serve in that role. All right, let's take a vote on the election.
Allison Osby,
Councilmember Mugrauer.
Erickson,
Krause.
Ford,
Councilmember Krause.
Krause,
Krause.
Mugrauer,
Mugrauer.
Peschel,
Krause.
Palmieri.
Krause.
I declare Councilmember Krause as deputy mayor.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And next we have the declaration of the deputy mayor. City Clerk, did you have any additional comments? No? Okay.
No.
Says City Clerk on the agenda.
Congratulations.
Wasn't sure if you had something additional. All right. I declare Councilmember Krause Deputy Mayor. Next, we move on to the council seating assignments. We'll go down in order of seniority. Did you have something? Okay. Councilmember Allison Osby.
Same as now during COVID, and then my typical spot where Councilmember Ford is when we resume normal seating arrangements.
Thank you for that clarification. All right, Councilmember Crossley, our Deputy Mayor Crossley.
We'll sit next to you.
Yes, that is reserved.
Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Mugrauer
I'll stay right here.
and Councilmember Erickson. So the options are between these two.
I think Councilmember Peschel should be.
Special.
My apologies. Didn't mean to leave you out of the mix.
I will remain in my seat that I have already.
So this one is reserved.
Okay.
So the options now are the empty seat to the right of Councilmember Ford and the empty seat between Deputy Mayor and Councilmember McGrower.
Perfect. I will take that seat.
All right,
Yep.
very good.
I'm just happy to be in the chamber, but I suppose I'll sit here.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Peschel. All right, so we are done with that. We'll move on to procedural matters, orientation of city departments for council members. City Manager, did you want to speak to that?
Sure. In the past, when we didn't have a pandemic to contend with, we reached out to council members for orientation with departments. Our Administrative Services Department will take the lead on that. You may have heard Councilmember Herman highly recommend it, and I would too. I think there's value to it. I think I think Mayor Palmieri took great advantage of it, and I think it does give you a good overview. When we are prepared to do it, we will extend the offer, but we will work with you to accommodate whatever schedules you are. And with that all said, I am not just specifically talking to our newest council members, Councilmember Erickson and Councilmember Ford. If any council member wants a refresher orientation, we absolutely would be happy to accommodate you as well. So we'll be in touch when we can do a little less social distancing so we can accommodate you.
Thank you, City Manager. And I would just echo the encouraging our new council members and the others if you'd like. They're very informational, and especially as it relates as we get into items on the agenda or going into the budget, having had the chance to tour the facilities, and that certainly gives you a little bit better appreciation for those items that we're voting on. And so if you can work it into your schedule, those department heads are very gracious hosts to share their areas and information on how things work. So Councilmember Mugrauer had an additional comment.
Actually, no, you basically said it in your word for word, so you,
Oh.
you copied off my paper over here. You're good.
Oh.
We're good on that.
Okay, very good. All right. So next, we'll move on to a discussion of council rules. We do have some additional rules that are local option that we've spelled out over the years, and typically or traditionally, this has been the time that we review those, although we can take those up at any time further on. This is kind of just been the traditional time that we would review those. I believe council members received a copy of those and some potential discussion for some changes that were offered. Would anyone like to start with comments on council rules? All right, we do have some amendments. Councilmember Peschel, are you with us?
Yep.
All right. First of all, I did ask that we put the text into our rules. We referenced the civility pledge, and I did ask that we put the verbiage in there because it's kind of a poster format. And so I'll just read those off real quick. I'm very excited that we've added this in for the convenience of those coming in. So pay attention, listen closely, be inclusive, don't gossip, show respect, be agreeable, apologize sincerely, give constructive comments, suggestions, and feedback, and accept responsibility. And so I'm appreciative that we've added that into the council rules. There are a couple of items with regard to rule number 3, rules pertaining to timing of submissions for inclusion on council agendas and attendance and excusal from meetings. This is just kind of, I think, doing some adjustments to some of the items for placement on the agenda, dividing it out into action items and informational items. City manager and I did meet and talk a little bit about this. So I'm going to actually ask city manager to share what the detail is on the agenda, and perhaps city clerk can weigh in on this as well.
You're talking about the options?
The action items and the informational items, where we divided those out into time frames that we'd like to see items placed on
Okay.
the agenda.
I'm sorry, I was just making sure I had the
Yeah,
right
no,
copy. Yeah, as the mayor and I had discussed, we were trying to overlay what changes that the mayor was looking to propose with kind of the reality of how the process works for the agenda. And we have a requirement internally that departments need to have items returned to the clerk's office by 4 o'clock the Tuesday prior to the meeting, so that the clerk can prepare that, because we have our department head meeting the following day, at which time we finalize the agenda. So the idea is to get those items in. So the thought was that council members would also be extended that courtesy / requirement, because it would keep things on the same order. Sometimes council members do ask a resolution to be adopted. It's very difficult if we're being asked that on a Thursday or a Friday. To the degree there are ordinances, that's a little different, because sometimes there are legal implications and everything. We can't necessarily do that. Typically, what I've done is suggest that council member bring it up under council discussion, and then we can kick it back and work on an ordinance. The most recent one was the vaping ordinance that the council clearly wanted to get done, but we needed to make sure we took the time to get it done. But if you want anything on the item that anticipates action, we'd ask that it be done by 4 o'clock. The mayor asked that it be a minimum of 2 council members, so that's one of the things for you to talk about as well. And then just the disclaimer at the end of that paragraph A, items submitted after the deadline may not be included in the agenda that's published Friday, because we try to get that done as soon as possible after our staff meeting on Wednesday. Did I cover everything there? And under A? Informational items, I think we just decided to put a title there, so we distinguished action items versus informational items. And, we can do that. The sooner you let us know, the better, because sometimes there is some anticipated preparation or research you may want us to do, and we can do it much more effectively if we get it earlier, but this still follows the same rule that currently exists. If you get it to noon prior to the council meeting, the law does require that it has a 24-hour notice unless it's an emergency. So 12 o'clock noon on Monday gives the clerk adequate time to republish it by close of business, because essentially close of business is close to 6 o'clock as we're going to get. So those are the items related to Section 3.
All right.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Mugrower.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't mind moving up the deadline for us to get things on the agenda. I have no issue with that, in allowing staff and giving them appropriate and plentiful time to work on things. I guess I'm interested in why the requirement of having 2 council members sign off on it or request it. What's the
Great question.
What's the impetus,
Yeah.
or what's the reasoning behind changing
Sure.
it from just where one of us can bring something forward?
Sure, so that's a really good question. The reason I propose that is because we were dividing out the action items, which can be more substantive, I guess kind of in fairness to not only staff, but to council for bringing, those more substantive either ordinance or resolutions forward to have the support of a fellow council person in proposing that action item. As you'll see, that's not the case on the informational items. So it's just offering up another way in which council could choose to proceed on that. Certainly, I welcome discussion. Councilmember Ford.
Well, I guess this is a question for folks who have served for a while. I mean, has that been a problem where single people have brought up something that didn't have any support? Has it been disruptive?
So yes and no. And that's not, I don't know necessarily recently, but I think in years past. And I think sometimes it wasn't an issue if, say, it was every now and then. But I do know a few years back, there were different council members on different pages requesting things at the same time. And again, there's a lot of legwork that goes into putting together a resolution or ordinance in place. Now, is having two people, or to be honest, I'm not bothered either way, whether it's an individual or if it requires two. I'm personally good either way.
Thank you.
City Attorney.
My concern with this is just that council members are aware that you should not be talking to multiple council members about something that comes before the meeting. So if you are looking for a partner and get a no from the first person, a no from the second person, pretty soon you've done a lot of discussion outside a meeting setting. So that is something to be aware of if you do change this rule.
Thank you for that detail and that addition. Any other council members like to discuss? Councilmember Krause?
I'm kind of conflicted on this. Attorney Lawrenson brought up a good point. If we go to one person and they don't support us, it's pretty much a dead issue to get it on the agenda or as a talkable issue for a possible action. But then at the same time, I support the two council member idea because, I mean, not that this council I have any concerns, but there could be in the future of council members that just try to hijack every meeting, bringing up points that no one's really interested in. It'd be nice to have a support person on that action item as well. So it's a tough one. I mean, I would probably support having the two council members.
City Attorney.
Just a clarification that it wasn't my intention to say that it would be a dead thing. You could still put it on for discussion, but it
But you would need
wouldn't-
two people to have discussion on that subject, wouldn't you? That's what we're asking here?
I don't think that was your intention, but I'm not sure.
The
I'm
idea
coming
was to
into
put it
this.
on the agenda. The idea was that two people would need to call the clerk or myself to say, I'd like item A put on the agenda.
As an action.
As an action item.
So this isn't just council discussion, like if I have an idea that I want to talk about to see if council wants to take it further, to bring it onto the agenda?
That would be considered an action item, even though it's not a resolution. So I would say, yes, that would be an action item.
If it has the potential for developing, a resolution or an ordinance change, that was the thought, was that it could end up requiring more, more of an effort. And we do deal with that in council discussion and direction to city manager. But this was just an opportunity to kind of tighten things up. And as I'm understanding, City Attorney Lawrenson, that just because you would inquire of someone whether that not they would be in support of that does not shut down the discussion if they say no. Is that what I understood?
Except I think I heard something different over
Okay.
here. So again, I'm coming into this late because I was not part of a discussion before this, but again, my concern is council members should not be calling each other. The time to discuss items is at the meeting. So to the extent that, a rule would require you to get support from other council members, that is something I would caution you on, because.
But they could approach city manager with that independently, those two or three, right? Is that, because if somebody wanted to bring something forth and we've done this in the past, right? You would either ask city manager or the clerk to add something on, depending on if it was informational action.
There are times when, a council member would call me and say, and council member so-and-so would also like this added, so put their name on it too, so it kind of showed ownership of two council members. So it's not unusual that that happens, it's just not as frequently. The rule has basically been it only requires one. But if a council member happened to talk to somebody one-on-one, that's okay. The city attorney is concerned about the first person you call, that person says no, then you're starting to pick up momentum, and I guess I didn't appreciate that as we were talking about it. Informational items B, just to clarify, that's only under council member statements, so council discussion would be part of an action item as the mayor suggested. So that would be, direction to the city manager may not necessarily be in the form of a motion, but it is certainly an item of discussion and consensus at a minimum. So the 2 or 1 is up to you. I think the city attorney is just alerting you to a potential problem. If you call the first person and you get a yes, not a problem.
Right.
You start calling and you go down
Yeah.
the line, I guess, we didn't talk that through.
Councilmember Mugrower.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, and these were some of the things that had come to my mind when I read that one. The potential for walking quorums is significant. If you'd like to try to get a second person to sign on to something, but if it in any way stifles a council member's ability to make a statement at a council meeting or to initiate a discussion, as City Manager Roloff did just allude to, that if it has the potential to lead to an action item, including giving him direction, that's stifling a council member's ability to make a statement on behalf of the people of the city of Oshkosh. I can't support doing that. It's my ability and my right to voice my concerns and my statements individually. And if others decide to come along in a discussion and it leads to action, that's a positive and good thing. But to hold someone back from being able to do so just because they need a second person, that doesn't make any sense to me in terms of how we govern. So I can't support that.
Yeah, and I don't think that was the intent at all. Certainly, I think what it comes down to is council will have to, work with staff then in that discussion and direction to city manager about, whose item gets on when, right? Who has the ability to introduce something and whether or not that works within the time frame coming up. So appreciate your comments, Councilmember McGrawer. I believe Councilmember Krause, or Deputy Mayor Krause had some comments also.
Thank you, Mayor. Would it be possible or appropriate maybe to allow just one person to bring up an item and let them present an issue for like a minute and ask for a second immediately? And if there's a majority or one at least to bring the discussion further into the whole group, would that be possible?
Well, we don't typically do motions in action in the direction to city manager. So are you talking about in another?
Well, when we do council discussion, let's just say to bring forth the busing or whatever, we asked for council consensus or a vote to see if it's able to be brought forward so they can work on it.
Yeah, City Attorney Lawrenson, perhaps you can address the reason why we don't vote in council discussion and direction to city manager?
We've had this discussion. There's no prohibition against it. And so if council, I've asked for consensus, and it's really more to get a feel. There is nothing prohibiting the council from doing it. We've normally traditionally done it under resolutions, a vote per se, but the council has the ability to make a motion in a second and give me specific direction, and we talked about that as a possibility. The mayor and I didn't talk about that, but the city attorney and I.
Yeah, I'm just now learning this, so that's great to know.
Yeah,
Glad we had the
I think
discussion.
there is value, yeah, and I'm glad it got brought up for that purpose, because that gives me greater confidence that what the council's telling us is something that they wish to move forward on. It's still like if they said we want an ordinance, that doesn't mean you're going to vote for an ordinance. You just give them staff direction to prepare it and give it back to you for consideration. So, in terms of doing a motion in a second, it's quite possible.
Yeah, because like
Oh,
Mr.
I'm glad
McGraw
you
brings
brought
a
that
good
up.
point. Like, I mean, why should any of us be held back if we have a singular opinion? Maybe we can be persuasive enough to get people on board, within that minute or two, whatever.
So then would you propose that, would the two of you then propose that come into, under the council discussion and direction, that we vote on those items and having at least, because then we know we have a second, right?
Yeah.
So we could take it out of here and just
So then we
more
don't-
formalize that direction to city manager piece?
So then
Is
we'd
that-
only have to have one person bringing up an issue, and that's what you're
Yeah.
concerned.
Yeah, so that meets your needs.
This doesn't meet my needs at all. No, I'm not interested in changing the current format. I don't think this has been thought out very well or very thorough in terms of the full implications that it has during a council meeting. Yes, we already do have the ability to make a motion, a physical, actual motion during council discussion or direction to city manager. We already have that full ability. Nobody chooses to take advantage of that currently. But no, this change, it's a way to adjust and to change who can speak on what topics at what times, and I'm just not interested in
No, it's not about speaking.
in
This
making
is
that
about
change.
the substantive action that's required. So if you look at what the intent is for us to have a discussion, it's not meant to censor anything. It's meant to help us work a little more efficiently. And so if that's, your opinion, maybe there are other council members who have other thoughts. Councilmember Allison Osby and then Councilmember Ford.
Sure. So I think now clarification is where we're talking through, because I think I misunderstood when I first read it. So essentially what this is proposing is keeping everything how we've currently been doing it, which is if there's something we want to discuss, we discuss it during council discussion, direction to city manager. But are you saying that in order for it to move to that next stage, to have staff work on it, that rather than just having city manager roll off and staff take nodding of heads, that it would be more formalized to move forward?
Yes,
Is that what
exactly.
you're asking?
Exactly. And now that, it's been brought up that we can do that in that piece, I don't think that was clearly understood on the part of former councils that, that could be. And again, it does just kind of help to prioritize and to, more efficiently and effective help the city manager get from us what that direction is, because we've been kind of maybe not so clear on that in the past. Councilmember Ford.
Yeah, I guess given the lack of current issues with this or recent issues with this situation, given what Councilman Mugarauer said, which I think are legitimate concerns, and the city attorney's concerns, I would propose that we strike this from the rule adjustment now. And since we've given the city manager some direction about what our intent is, maybe we could ask that they come back with something that gives us some specifics about how we might accomplish that without causing any potential issues, legal issues.
That's fair.
So we can bring back the rules perhaps at the next council meeting? Because there are some other items on here we want to have discussion on too.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, there's several others.
Yep.
Sure.
All right, and so the next item that was proposed is bringing back something that was brought up at the organizational meeting previously that Councilmember Peschel had requested. It is that council members would be given the opportunity to report on activities of their assigned boards and commissions to which they're a liaison. The mayor would ask each council member to provide a report if applicable, and it would be limited to 1 minute per assigned board and commission. It would be more informational, not meant for back and forth discussion. If discussion was required, then it would be added to a future agenda. And by that adding on potentially 2 minutes, depending on your assignments, we were also trying to accommodate and reduce the former council statements timeframe from 5 minutes to 3 minutes. So then it would still kind of balance out in general. So if that's something that council has an interest in, perhaps Councilmember Peschel, you would like to weigh in on that addition.
Sure. Just as I did last year, I think this is important for the optics of us communicating to the community about what goes on at our boards and commissions, and it also shows that we are doing work on these committees and out in the community and working with community members to further the vision of the city of Oshkosh. So again, I think that this doesn't need to take a significant amount of time from meetings. And I agree with the 1 minute statement. And again, this is not something new to city governments. In a review of this, I see that city governments that are small and large take time at their council meetings or board meetings to do these reports. So, thank you.
And also, certainly, any council member could just decline or pass. While we already have kind of a placeholder for council member statements, and they could do this already, the final discussion point that we had agreed to was to do that on a quarterly basis. If you watch the former organizational meeting, and we haven't really been practicing that on a consistent basis. So it would just give it a little more shape and structure to that reporting. Councilmember Mugrauer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think you kind of hit it on the head there, though. It was discussed last meeting, and in those 12 months, I don't know that there's been very many reports back to council by council members on the activities of their boards and commissions. You're absolutely right. We have the ability to already do so. Council members are choosing not to. So this is, in effect, telling them that they should be doing this. And if they have something that they want to share, then it's on them to make sure that they get a request in, put a statement on there, on the agenda. But to make them, or to, that you would ask to provide a report if applicable. This is just, once again, just telling us that we have to do something that up till this point, nobody's chosen to really do very much. I reported back several times, I know myself, on the ad hoc special assessments committee to report back the work on that one myself. But I don't know that requiring it or putting this in there is going to be very much of a help. If council members would like to do it, they should do it. Just over the last year, 2 years of myself on council, but also over the last decade plus, council members have chosen to not give monthly, quarterly, or even annual updates on their boards and commission service. So. And then part two, the 3 minutes down, reducing the amount of time that council members can speak from 5 minutes down to 3 minutes. It actually goes back to my point previously, to reduce or stifle, council members in any way I'm not supportive of. Citizens can come up front and speak for 5 minutes. I should be at least able to speak for the same amount of time that they can in front of us on any one topic. I know there's several boards, like councils or school boards, maybe for Mr. Peschel, I don't know their rules, but they limit speaking to only one time, or so you got to get your point in first, and then there is no follow-ups. That's an option too, but reducing the amount of time that I could speak on any one issue from 5 minutes to 3 minutes, I'm not supportive of.
Well, let's be clear. This was not a requirement because, as was stated, each council member could also decline if they so choose. So let's not misstate that. All right. Any further discussion on that? Would you like to see this come back as well, or do we have council member further comments or discussion?
Quick
Councilmember
question.
Ford?
It says, note exception to the 3 minutes may be made at the discretion of the council. I know that they just changed the number there.
Yes.
What would that look like?
Well, we've, I think traditionally, even for citizen representatives who come forward, sometimes in the past they've requested to go beyond their time, or when they come to the end of their time limit, we've asked council if they would, agree to extend the time. And I can't think of many instances where we haven't. Typically, it's been pretty generous, and it, maybe another minute or so.
The same thing for council members. If we knew we were going to be a little long-winded,
Right.
we may want to give a little heads up, hey, this is going to be longer than 5 minutes, and then
Yeah.
so council has a heads
Yeah.
up. That's
Yep.
that was
So
that
there's
part a
room
little
for
bit, but-
movement in there, certainly. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I may,
Yes, Councilmember Peschel.
Sure. I guess if we're going to bring, changes back at a later meeting, I'd like to encourage that we keep the time at 5 minutes for council members. I think that is an important part of our role to have the time and the patience, even though the 5 minutes sometimes goes very quickly, to be able to have that time frame to be able to speak our piece.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, Councilmember Erickson.
I would say I'm supportive of having the report out from the boards and commissions on the agenda, just as a reminder that that is an option if we choose to take it. So.
Thank you.
Would it be, Madam Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember McGraw.
Would it be maybe as a I can't even think the right word. Might it be an idea? We've done this before. I know, I think this last year we had, city manager updates where he has a section under. He's always going to update us on stuff. It may be worthwhile to have them put on the agenda actually as a header. Council member reports on boards and commissions, and if it keeps being left blank, it's either A, a reminder to council members to report back, just silent reminder, or B, we just see how many are get reported back, and then if it gets left blank for too long, you can always take it off. But even just to permanently put a header on there saying council.
Sure.
Some
There was an
council member reports.
expectation. Yeah, there was an expectation that we would list out the council members' names and what their assignments are. And it could be that as we get further into the rule discussion here after this may change depending upon how we vote on those next items with regard to council assignments. So, yes, Councilmember Allison Osby.
So would that then be on the agenda quarterly then?
No, it would be it would be at each meeting, because there may have been other meetings in between, and there may not have been, right? So.
Well, I'm
yes.
hearing two different things, because we originally talked about, that the precedence was set up to be quarterly,
Mhm.
even though nobody took advantage of it. And then somebody just mentioned about having it on the agenda. So.
Yeah, and we have some meetings
Which-
that meet biweekly, some that meet monthly, and others that are every other month or bi-monthly. So it would kind of be more of a placeholder, I think, as Councilmember McGraw was suggesting. And then, I could just quick call down the roll. Do you have anything, to report? And then it's optional to, obviously, it's not compelling anybody.
And so according to this, such report shall be limited to 1 minute per assigned board and commission. If greater discussion is required.
Right,
move
so
it
it's
to a
future agenda
agenda.
item, instead of that becoming a longer discussion that wasn't prepared for in advance, right? Yeah. All right. Okay. Next is kind of the meat of this. I did ask the city manager to work with us on some potential options regarding council liaisons and how we might lay that out. I appreciate the suggestions in, helping to, break this down into 4 options. There may be other options. These were just something for us to have discussion on. So with regarding, currently we have 10 statutorily created by state statute board and commissions, and then we have another dozen plus, actually I think 14 that fall into the local option. And some of our codes indicate that there's a required council member. And so this is really about discussing whether or not those council member seats or liaison assignments or appointments continue to maintain voting rights, whether or not we look at, and there's been some discussion in the past about whether or not they become the ex officio with non-voting rights and not counting towards quorum. And then, if we do go with continued voting rights, how we handle those instances where perhaps absences interfere with quorums or the potential for, I guess, changing those nominations. And then finally, we've also got the opportunity or the ability to eliminate all of the council member appointments as liaisons to boards and commissions. And I'm not specifically advocating for any specific one, but it was just a conversation starter for us to have with regard to our council assignments. I think you all have a copy of the review of the city boards and commissions and committees from 2017. There is a matrix in there that I asked that you, take a look at in terms of the referenced either statute or city code. And then, City Attorney, could I just ask you to kind of go into the detail about when we list in there the number of members, and then there's another column, the council rep, does that total number?
I did not do that matrix, I don't think.
Yeah, the number of members includes a council rep.
Okay, that was all, just trying to spell that out. So you're saying it does not include the council rep?
No, it doesn't
So-
include the council. So for
I'm sorry,
example, first
it
one.
does. All right.
First one said, let's go to the second one.
Yeah.
Landmarks Commission, 6 + 2 alts. Council reps, 2. 2 council members are part of that group of 8.
All right, I did not, that's not what I had on the other matrix that I received. I only had one. So,
I'll go to the Plan Commission. I know there's one there. 9.
Sure.
There's 9 members of the Plan Commission, one of which is a council member.
right. So obviously that changes, the numbers if we go that direction, but this is just an opportunity for us to have that discussion. There have been, times, and I'll just start off saying this, that, I've missed meetings for either personal or other conflict reasons, and, certainly, you can appoint somebody in your kind of proxy, but we have not given that option in our codes. So this is an opportunity for us to have that discussion.
Just a point of clarification, that was accurate as of June of 2017. That was one of the changes that the council instituted when they merged the Grand Opera House Advisory Board with the Landmarks Commission. That's why you're correct, it doesn't apply, because
It's one now.
This is a little dated.
Yeah.
3 years.
Yep. All right. Councilmember Ford.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion the value of having a council member on those committees is to be that bridge between citizens that are appointed to those commissions. So I'm pretty indifferent if they maintain voting rights. I think we ought to keep somebody on there. So if it works logistically better for quorum reasons, to them not have voting rights, I'd be all for that.
I would be in favor of either number 1 or number 2. I am not in favor of number 3 or number 4.
Councilmember Mugarava?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd be in favor of just maintaining status quo in terms of council member activity on those boards. It's, if you review the meeting minutes of several boards and commissions, it is tough to get a quorum at times. And so to remove another one and now try to find new applicants. Currently, if the city website's updated, there are 24 vacant spots for active and alternate, thank you for the
Yep.
word, for fully active or full participation as well as alternates. There's 24 vacancies at the moment, so to create an additional dozen to 18 openings at the moment, I don't see as being fruitful. I think it will harm us more at this moment. If we were full up and had a waiting list on every single board, I think it'd be a different conversation, or I'd have a different mentality on it at the moment, but right now with so many openings, I can't say taking the voting rights away being a good thing at this moment. So I think status quo is where I would enjoy to stay.
So just a point of clarification then, City Attorney, if we were to change that to ex officio members of those assigned boards, it would require us to make some changes to those local codes in terms of the number of required members, correct?
They would be ordinance changes, correct?
Okay. Okay. Councilmember Krause?
I would be in support of either 1 and 2. With the other ones, 4, I don't consider an option, and 3 assigned meetings, I would be okay maybe moving that up to 4, because I mean, life happens, and you might miss 2 in a row for some reason, and then there's the whole rest of the year, and if you hit 3 to be removed, I mean, I just think 3 might be a little low, especially for meetings that meet potentially 12 times a year.
Further?
Just a point of clarification, or to make sure we're clear on something too. If I remember correctly, non-council members, just citizen members, if they miss 3 meetings, they are up for possible removal. So to change us, to make us different, to say if we miss 4, it's okay, but citizens, if they miss 3, but I believe 3 is the number, if they miss it, that they are potentially up for removal.
Where do you think that is? Because it's not.
It's not in our,
There's no
it's not in our ordinances.
I think it's within, okay, I'll go back and find it, but that's information I had gleaned when I did some research on this actually it's part of this whole package when I was doing some things, so, and that's fine if it's not correct, and I'm fine being
And I may
wrong.
just not be recalling it.
And I'm fine being wrong, but just to make sure it's equal, because there are mechanisms for us to ask
Yep.
or staff to ask for a member be removed, and I believe there was a litmus test of X amount of meetings missed.
Right, and actually, Councilmember McGuire, I think you may be right in part. I don't think it was a blanket rule or policy, but it was perhaps a specific board or commission had their own rules with regard to that. I think I may have seen that with like 1 or something.
Okay.
So I can understand that might be a possibility.
Yeah, I have the general rules of order for the boards and commissions, and I don't see it in here.
So it sounds like we have some interest in the liaison and also keeping it status quo. Sounds like we have 1, 2, 3, 4 of us who would like to consider the number 2 option. Councilmember
Mayor?
Hassan Osby.
With the caveat that we're not in a position in which we have a number of vacancies, to Mr. Mugarauer's point.
Well, we're always going to have the potential for vacancies.
Oh, no, I know that, but if there's a significant amount on a particular board.
Yeah, maybe you want to speak a little more on that, because right now, I think we all understand that with those 20-plus boards and commissions, we do not currently staff all of them with a council rep, and there are a number of them who would like to have council reps, and there are 2 other traditionally represented boards that are not required that we have been staffing. So part of this was to acknowledge the fact that we don't have enough council members to go around to everyone that would like them. And so I think Councilmember Ford would like to weigh in on that as well.
Well, just to clarify, and perhaps this is for the city attorney and Madam Mayor. So the goal for the second option would be to change ordinances to reduce the number of members by 1. So it wouldn't be a matter of replacing the council member?
Well, we can't go with 1 because then it would be an even number.
Okay.
Right, on the ones that are odd numbered.
Okay, so we would either have to then backfill and find additional citizens, or
But we
reduce
also
by 2.
added 2 alternates to them, so we're netting out still ahead, not less.
Okay.
Because this year, we added, I believe it was 2 potential alternates to those who didn't already have them.
Okay.
And as well as actually 3, because I was going to talk about this a little bit later, but we also added the ex officio for youth opportunities to serve. And now with, Safer at Home, maybe we might get a few more of those applications coming in.
Mayor, if I may.
Oh, yes, Councilmember Peschel.
So, I think I can lean towards one or two. But in order to be comfortable with number two, I think I would need some type of report of like the current state of our boards and commissions, and I just haven't requested that information.
Certainly.
Like, and I think that's an important piece of information in potentially going that direction, because I feel that it's really important as a council member right now to be at those committee meetings. One, to make sure that they take place, because I feel like I'm part of that quorum. And then second, I feel that I'm a representative voice that brings guidance and direction to those commissions. And I think that continues in two, but my ability to keep a meeting going could be lessened if I don't count towards a quorum. And so, in order for me to be comfortable, I'd really want to know that we're in a good spot in regards to involvement on our committees.
So are you
So, does that
asking
make-
for an attendance report by council members?
Not necessarily an attendance report by council members, but let's say, for example, the Parks Board has nine members on that Parks Board, but let's say we have 3 or 4 that get off of that board, and we can't maintain a quorum then if we don't have people on those boards. So,
Well,
because we've taken away the council members' ability to help create a quorum.
But it also works the other way when council members don't show, right? So we've kind of got a little bit of a dilemma there. So what I kind of hear people saying is they're not really, completely comfortable. And I wanted to make sure that we shared this matrix. And certainly, I think we have this report that was done in 2017, which might maybe we could even have an updated version of the study of the boards and commissions and bring this back. But as it relates to the council rules, then maybe we, lay this over until we have the ability. But I would like to make sure that, our council appointments are meaningful, and that they're not interfering with quorum. And again, I think we have to be very mindful of the fact that we all have working schedules, that the current council makeup and potentially future councils, that we may not necessarily be able to fulfill all of the requests of those boards and commissions. We have to look at the priority of those that are required by our ordinance and make sure we're attending and filling those. Looks like City Manager wanted to weigh in on that as well.
2 things. One, I think we can update Appendix A from the 2017 report to be more current. A couple commissions were eliminated. The purpose of the number of meetings canceled was really more about another issue. I don't think that's necessarily applicable, but we can update all this information so that council's aware of that. If there's anything else you'd like added to that, I appreciate knowing now so I can, because we'll give this to department heads tomorrow morning and just have everybody just update it. I'm not sure if there's anything in particular other than updating the number of council reps and updating the committees. For example, the traffic review and parking utility are now one committee. We
Right.
merged those together.
And I think there may have been a couple of committees that, maybe, I think Councilmember Allison Osby has, been the representative for Committee on Aging, and I don't think they even, made it to the list of the discussion in our study previously. So maybe there are some boards and commissions where things have changed, or, they didn't get weighed in, and we can, also look at those and what they do as well.
Are you suggesting something different in the chart, or?
No, in the text of the report from the 2017,
Yeah.
that was based on 2016 information. So there may be other things that have come, up that are also needing to be updated here in terms of recommendations. We will also be, bringing the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee to add to bear, which goes back to Councilmember Mugerauer's point and Councilmember Peschel, in terms of not just citizen appointments, but also, our council appointments.
Well, I'll be happy to provide the updated appendix for purposes of this liaison issue, because this is one of the leftover issues from that 2017 study that keeps emerging. And just one observation. I was going to make this observation when former Deputy Mayor Herman was here, but it'll be a little self-deprecating. This is the first time in my career that I am older than all of my council members. With that said, that is not a bad thing, but I think what it does show is that the change, and I just turned 60 recently, so just be kind to your elders now. But the reality is, in the past, there were several council members who were in their 60s on a regular basis, and that is not the case. And that with having a different demographic of our council, your lives are different than people who preceded you. And that is creating the challenges, I think, that the mayor and I discussed. And rather than making a specific recommendation, the idea was, let's lay out the different options that are out there, because there is no perfect answer here.
There's no elegant solution.
No, there isn't. It's just more what works best for this group and this, not just this council, because this can change. This changes every year. But in terms of moving forward, what is the role of the council liaison? Only you can answer that question. The boards and commission chairs, we've talked about this. We talked about it before Mayor Palmieri. We've wrestled with this issue for a number of years. So it's really just trying to figure out, is there an appropriate time to change this? And I throw that out to you, not with a recommendation, but to say, well, you got a heck of a decision on your hands.
So that's a great segue into, unless anybody had any further discussion on this, to the next item for discussion, and that's with regard to the remote participation by all council and staff for future council meetings during emergency. Obviously, we've had a new order that came to light here in the last few days. It was thought that out of consideration for new council members, and I think the current council members and those suggesting that the new council weigh in on that as to, bringing this for us to discuss again today. Currently, the way it stands, city manager, we have it, and city attorney maybe, that council members may participate remotely, and that boards and commissions may participate remotely if there are quorum issues. However, in light of maybe some detail that city manager would like to share, it is open for discussion for us today to also allow all rather than just a requirement for quorum.
Under the governor's new order, this is under businesses, so I use that. I have to clarify that, but it says all businesses, including essential businesses and operations. Says to the greatest extent feasible, use technology to avoid meeting in person, including virtual meetings, teleconference, and remote work, i.e. work from home. The idea behind that specifically said essential businesses and operations. The city does not fall under that category. The city actually falls under the category of essential government functions. So it's not specifically requiring us to do that, but certainly that's the issue that's out there. And I thought it was appropriate, since that was updated a little bit from the governor's previous order, that I would bring that to your attention.
So would anyone like to weigh in on what their opinion is? Councilmember Erickson.
Thank you. I'm supportive of having the option available to people if they have the resources to be able to participate remotely. I think that's something that we should be working toward, so that members who would like to participate but are not maybe comfortable participating in person at this time have that option.
So I think there was some discussion previously about even if someone did not necessarily have a specific device, allowing for call-in. City manager, did you Do you recall when we were, and Mr. Newman is here too, and I think that we have the technology to allow for both, right? Call-in only and/or device through the WebEx tool?
Yes, we do. And one of the things that I've asked department heads, and I wasn't able to check this morning, was to kind of poll their individual boards and commissioners, and if you needed to go virtual, would you have any specific needs that we would need to accommodate you? For example, Mr. Peschel's sporting those headphones that we provided to him. If somebody didn't have that capability, didn't have a webcam on their computer, or if they say, well, fine, I can do it with phones, wanting to know what those needs were. I think we can accommodate any boards and commissions, because currently we're saying only for quorum. I'm sure we can accommodate somebody in the WebEx format, similar to what we're doing for Councilmember Peschel right now, and extend that courtesy to all boards and commissions that currently have, that are currently in a room that has that. We have some meetings in 203. Most of our meetings are here. A couple are off-site. For example, the library has their meetings at the library. The museum has theirs at the museum. That might be a challenge, but again, we'll work through whatever that is, depending on what council's wishes are. Maybe during the emergency, we can move some of these meetings to here if we can move that around. It's not as easy as you think. This room's empty so much, but in the afternoons on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, everybody wants this room, and that's just one of the challenges we have. But if the council wishes to extend that courtesy to your fellow boards and commissioners, we'll make that happen.
So currently, we're not holding those other board and commission meetings with the exception of Plan Commission and RDA. We don't have any others scheduled. Would this, and perhaps city attorney may want to weigh in on this, on concerns there, but would this allow us to reconvene those and move some of the currently stacking up items on agendas to continue our form of government?
I'll take that one on, because the original directive that we had given was I would make a decision based on consulting with boards and commissioners as well as staff. We need some board and commission meetings coming up because of our capital improvement program. A good number of committees weigh in on the capital improvement plan. Think of Parks Board with park CIPs and things like that. We need to have those meetings because that is an issue that council wants to know, that the boards and commissions have weighed in on those things. I'm guessing at least 5 or 6 boards and commissions we're going to need to convene for that purpose, and that is a legitimate continuity of government. And if there's anything else that any board or commissioner felt that they felt we needed to have a meeting, we could revisit those. But the CIP is somewhat time sensitive right now, so I want to get those meetings together because the departments need that input from their respective boards.
Councilmember Mugarrar.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With that said, I think we already extended the latitude in the ability to city manager roll off to make those calls in determining what was prudent, what was needed at the time, considering the emergency. We're still under one. Hopefully it's short-lived. Hopefully we're not going to be in it too much longer, but we can't plan for, or we don't know what's ahead of us. I don't think it'd be a very big step to allow him the same latitude to extend those courtesies to boards and commissions if they have the ability to meet, if they need to meet, to allow them to meet, remotely, support them with whatever technology pieces we need to temporarily. But give him the latitude that if those meetings need to occur, they occur. If they don't need to occur, then they don't have to occur.
Yeah, and this isn't regarding whether
For
or
boards and
not
commissions
they,
only.
this isn't just city manager's decision. There are those boards and commissions that can decide, members can bring things to him that they feel are, but it is up to this new council to decide if we change the ordinance, because currently, as I understand it, the way the ordinance reads, it does not allow people on boards and commissions to participate remotely unless there is a quorum issue. And so that's where we're trying to reshape this.
And if we get that direction that you want to accommodate boards and commissions, then we'll turn an ordinance around for adoption on one reading next Tuesday. So today's Plan Commission, we can't take care of. Joint Review Board, but everybody else moving forward, we'll get that done.
Councilmember Ford.
Yeah, just a quick question. So under the emergency declaration, are we not currently able to do remote meetings? Or
We normally don't do remote meetings outside of the emergency. We haven't accommodated that. There are various issues.
so currently, we're not violating the ordinance by doing it under the emergency declaration?
The emergency
There was
declaration
a
gave us the ability to
separate
do an
ordinance.
ordinance.
There
We did a
was a-
special ordinance for
Yes.
the emergency.
There was a separate ordinance that we did related to remote participation during the emergency situation. At the time,
Okay.
we were a little more dubious of our abilities to handle remote participation, and I think that's where that suggestion of, if we get to a quorum and we don't need to deal with that issue, we weren't going to deal with it. I think the city manager's a little more confident in our abilities now, and we've kind of gotten the swing of that. And so, we can make that modification. It's not going to be a difficult change to get it.
Okay.
It can be on next Tuesday's
So,
meeting.
so the lasting effect, and I guess this gets at what former Deputy Mayor Herman was saying about planning ahead. The lasting effect of this would be, they can currently meet under the emergency declaration, but once the emergency declaration is over, we will still continue to have remote participation be allowed?
No.
No.
The
We could
way
change
it's
it.
written right now, it's remote participation during the emergency. You would have to take it up and discuss it. If you want to make it permanent, that's a different
It would be a
issue.
separate issue. Okay, thank you.
But we could address it at the same time in the change.
You want that on Tuesday as well? That's going to be a little more work for me, I'm going to just be honest.
Yeah.
I'd rather have you put that off just to give me the ability to get this one done and get the agenda done, and then we can, put that on a future meeting.
Yeah, and I don't think we can put off the current meetings needed, but I see what you're saying. You're saying separate that out for a later time
Yeah.
if we want to go beyond the emergency order. Because, I mean, some of the comments that I've been getting too is that, there have been situations where either through a health or a family health, family member's health or whatever, someone may like to be able to participate remotely, but they can't. And so that would be, I think a future discussion.
Part of the hesitation with that, just so you're aware, is the way that this is written now, the remote participation, we have to live stream it. We have to have it on the radio station and multiple other things. That is not every board and commission typically meets in these rooms. They don't typically
Have that capability of being live streamed.
streamed. Some of them are taped and then played later. So that's why, that's going to just take a little more time to look at, think through, talk to the IT people about, and work it up.
Yeah.
So,
And some of our
aren't
boards and commissions aren't even recorded.
taped at all.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So there's
So,
a lot of things are going to happen, discussions, what's the new normal after all this is done. But we'll work through this for the emergency, and then we can bring it back in council to discuss it when you have the wisdom of hindsight come in a few months.
And if I could ask the clerk, sorry to catch you off guard here, it just occurred to me. At the end of our, or in our council agendas and our packets, we offer the opportunity to people to request special accommodations to attend council meetings. Could I ask you, what kind of requests have that come in? Or perhaps somebody else may want to speak to that. For people who have had either physical limitations or other, that we would like to continue to be or improve our inclusion and ability for people to participate.
Yeah, we have a policy that's out there that they may contact my office if they have any specific accommodations. Fortunately, when we redid the carpeting here a couple years ago, we put in the hearing loop so that somebody who's hearing impaired, as long as they have one of those devices that allows that, we have that capability. We used to have the little necklace type of things, but those have been replaced by the hearing loop. So that's typically the one we get the most on.
Have we had any requests for closed captions or anything like that?
No, nothing
No.
like that, at least not to date.
All right. Any other comments on this piece of council rules? All right, so we can move on to other business. Discussion regarding process of reappointment of citizens to boards and commissions. I'll just say that I appreciate Councilmember Mugrauer asking, about reports too, because, we've had kind of a roller coaster in terms of lots of application periods, and then kind of a downward since, we've lost a couple of people either, through passing on or through other requirements. And as I understand it throughout the community, some of our volunteership is down like 70%. And that's not unique to Oshkosh, but, given the current orders and circumstances, that volunteership is somewhat down. However, I'm excited that we are getting new applications and applications coming in, but trying to make sure that we are, I think, clear to the other council members, where we stand in terms of vacancies. I want to thank Administrative Assistant Diane Moran for all the work she's done in instituting a new software program that can generate things like vacancy reports. We certainly have a little more technology available to us, and that's helped get a better at a glance, and that can be shared with council as well. So we're all welcome to recruit for those boards and commissions and those recommendations. There are potentially some other items that council would like to discuss on the process of reappointment. I will just say that as terms are expiring at the end of May, we have had a few people who have requested to not be reappointed and to be appointed to other boards because they'd like to rotate into another area of interest. We've had a couple of other scenarios in which, people have decided that they would like to apply for something else in the community. The letters have gone out to the folks whose terms are expiring, and we certainly are very appreciative of that service. We do have term expirations here on our boards and commissions, so it's not an automatic. So just kind of sharing that information, and many opportunities to serve. And I want to take this opportunity to especially encourage the youth in high school who have an interest. There are non-voting ex officio opportunities, and certainly now, while you maybe have a little more time on your hands, would be a great chance. You can apply for a semester, for a year, and we will work with you on your interests. Any other questions or discussion on the reappointment process? All right. So, City or Deputy Mayor Krause, I need to give you the motion for going into closed session.
The Common Council may convene into closed session pursuant to Section 19.851G of the Wisconsin State Statutes to confer with legal counsel who will render advice concerning strategy to be adopted with respect to litigation in which the city is or is likely to become involved related to Fox Valley Pro Basketball, Inc. and/or property located at 1212 South Main Street in Oshkosh, in the city of Oshkosh.
Second.
All right, please call the roll.
Allison Osby,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Krause,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Peschel,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
carried 7.
All right, we are adjourned.
Motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion for adjournment. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.